Hi, everybody. This is Annalisa with Journey to the Goddess, and welcome to today's segment of Goddess Fridays. I am here today with Dr. April Heaslip. Hello, Dr. April.
Hi, Annalisa.
A little bit about Dr. April. She is a mythologist, an ecofeminist, and an educator. She's in the middle of completing a book on Mary Magdalene based on her dissertation. And she's also a collaborator and a contributor here at Journey to the Goddess. So I'm so lucky to be speaking with her today. So our topic is going to be on regeneration. I myself am fascinated with regeneration and the implications for the individual, for the culture, as a feminine value or principle. So if you are interested in all the myriad meanings of regeneration and how that can help you thrive and how it can help the world thrive, then I encourage you to continue on this journey with us today. All right, Dr. April, let's get into it. So let's talk about regeneration, the meaning. What does regeneration mean simply? And from a very biological standpoint, it means to renew, yes, to renew, like plant, animal tissues can literally regenerate, but it has a lot more, I think, metaphorical meanings. It has more cultural meanings. It has ecological meanings. So let's dive into that.
Oh, I love that introduction. Yes. So I think if we look at ecology and biology and consider regeneration as the primary function within the natural world, can look at a food cycle. So we have a seed that becomes a plant that we eat, and then we compost the rest. And the compost, through the darkness of winter, turns into soil to nourish the next plant. So it's a wonderful metaphor for life, especially considering the challenges that life can bring. So grief is a wonderful teacher and really miserable to go through. It's that,
Yeah.
that an example of a dark night of the soul. But if we place it within this legacy of going around in a cycle, it becomes a fallow period that will nurture something new and bring empathy and wisdom in a way that only comes through experience.
That's beautiful. I think that's a really kind of easy and simple imagery and template to understand the
One of the reasons I love ecofeminism, and I studied it in the 90s when I went to Goddard College and did a master's in social ecology. And I have this habit of studying things before they're cool, and then they get really cool. But it takes about 2 decades for my family and friends to say, oh, I understand what you're doing now.
Sure.
So at the time, it was a rather radical, smaller pocket of scholars and practitioners who were really looking at how violence against women and violence against the earth were very connected. And it was a continuum of othering, pretty much, in terms of a patriarchal structure. So I worked as an ecofeminist for a while, and then I kind of put it down and put it aside while I went and did other things and was working with women's studies and mythology and whatnot. And then I brought it all together in my dissertation. And now, as I'm writing this book on the regeneration of the feminine principle in culture, it is such a strong guiding principle because it relates to our interdependence with the life-giving forces of the planet, and how that interdependence is so primal that to deny it is mental illness.
Yes.
And that's a driving principle in ecopsychology.
So I want to look also at the earth-based spirituality perspective and how that coincides with the ecofeminist perspective, because in my mind there's kind of a symbiosis there, or an informing of these two perspectives. And so again, I'm from outside looking in. I'm not an earth-based spiritualist. Um, but what I see, what I like about what I understand about earth-based spirituality is the understanding of the immanence of the divine permeating through all things: plant, animal, human, microorganism, macrocosmic. So I find that piece of the earth-based spirituality that they bring forward, in combination with the ecological slash ecofeminist perspective, that every living thing has intrinsic value and is an important piece of the larger ecosystem that we're all a part of on planet Earth here, and just the seeing the value of all life. And I see that as part of both of these systems. Could you speak more to that as it relates to regeneration and why and how that can feed an understanding of regeneration?
Mm. Yeah, that's such a lovely way to frame it. I think I think it starts with looking at nature and having finding myself as part of nature rather than nature's over there and I'm doing battle with it or separate from it or rejected by nature. But an intricate part of nature, I have a much more grounded stance in general. And I don't know, I think we all might be more earth-based practitioners than we realize. Every time we take a walk, every time we place a rock, every time we breathe, it's an opportunity to be in relationship with the elements.
Right.
Lighting a fire that keeps us warm and makes our food. I mean, it's a
Taking a
daily
drink of
practice.
water.
Drinking the water. I mean, it's a daily practice. And it puts us in a different stance in terms of learning that the oceans are full of plastic and it's in the rain that's falling down now and it's in the animals and it gives us more agency, I believe, to shift. Again, there's that shifting towards honoring the elements and the dying and the life giving opportunities that are inherent in nature.
So we've talked a little bit about the earth-based spirituality. We've gone into ecofeminism. So now I really want to make the point clear as to why regeneration is a feminine value, why it is associated with the goddess, why we're talking about it today. And so both you and I have a background in researching and understanding the work of Maria Gimbutas, the Lithuanian archaeomythologist. For anyone that doesn't know what that means, that's an archaeologist who is using the mythological lens to help her interpret archaeological data that otherwise there's no written script that tells us what those cultures during the Neolithic actually believed. So let's go into why regeneration is important, why it's associated with the goddess.
Right. So let's start with Gimbutas's practice of archaeomythology. She developed this way of reading language and folklore and archaeology, but also current mythology. For example, she studied living song in Lithuania, and how pottery, song, weaving, carvings all carried the iconography of the ancient goddess cultures that lived there in the Neolithic period. So, or maybe since the Neolithic period. So she's able to read these patterns in her scholarship, and she made a claim for rebirth, renewal, and regeneration as the primary life cycle. So we've got birth, death, regeneration. And in that, I believe goddesses in general and goddess culture and this whole revitalization in the past, well, there are a few waves, but in the past 150 years, and definitely in the past 30 years, this whole new nugget of time is all about the the goddesses as regeneratrixes, as psychopomps, as guides, as um, the return of something that's been lost and pushed underground,
Right.
nearly annihilated through
Right.
Cartesian dualism, patriarchal thinking, logos centered thinking that is very dry and arid and denies the emotions, embodied
Hmm.
experience, all of these things. So
Right.
this is a return of what was lost and exiled. And this exilic feminine principle can be seen in so many ways right now. I can't even track it all. Thank goodness. I mean, it's a wonderful time to be living and studying all of this, but it's very hard to systematically write about it because there's been an exponential explosion of information and real attention to this. You can see it in Ronan Farrow's work deconstructing what happened at NBC with Harvey Weinstein and in his own family. You can see it in the women's soccer equal pay movement, the Me Too movement writ large globally. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just phenomenal. And this is all that regenerative energy.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I was just thinking, I mean, like the obvious example within the world of goddess mythology was Mary Magdalene. I think that there's a kind of a multiple layers of this regeneration, like you're saying, as the primary principle, in which the goddess embodies this regenerative cycle. And she's literally regenerating herself right now in the human psyche.
And there's this deep hunger for a rebalancing of um, genders, and I think a lot of the shadow behavior we're noticing too is also this intense craving for the feminine, this longing for what has been missing, this
Right.
ability to be intelligent about our emotions and about our own embodied experience, and to irrigate that desertified wasteland. As a feminist historian, I came into my graduate studies having explored this treasure trove of women's history and stories that had been lost, misplaced, forgotten, and then was being reclaimed. So through the arts, through science, through warrior stories, I mean, it was just women's contributions had always been there. They just hadn't been valued. So the piece about Mary Magdalene that really intrigued me was how her history was completely missing. And the zeitgeist right now is seeking a rebalancing between the genders and the principles of the masculine and the feminine.
Right.
And I mean, in a way, it would be so nice if we could just talk about it in terms of yin and yang, and but the brutality of this loss is written on women's bodies and on the earth.
Right.
So we really need to look at it as an embodied um, trauma.
And this is where the value of regeneration can come in, which is how do we get to the point now where we can regenerate, and what does regeneration look like? How
Right,
do we pull in that feminine value to regenerate ourselves as individuals, as a culture?
right. And one of the mad skills of regenerating is being a detective. So, for example, with Magdalene's story, it's not that she was invented out of the blue. There were and are many stories and legends and practices from 2 millennia ago that were uh, systematically eliminated from Christian and mostly Western Christian um, Orthodox behavior and practices. And so to go back and really look at those anew and look at those refreshed, they also came out of a then broken lineage to earlier mythologies and partnership models. So it's really about taking the long view and looking at these in cultural context and historical context, and with the feminist curiosity of, wow, what's really going on here and why. It's
Right.
an analysis of power is really primal in that inquiry.
Yes. Yeah.
Who's telling the story and why?
I want to kind of start to put the pieces together. What we've created here, again, to use one of your kind of favorite images, is bricolage. We've bricolaged, we've created a picture, a framework for regeneration, why it's a feminine value, how it's associated with the goddess, how it's associated with the earth, how it relates to our everyday life, like biologically, physiologically, spiritually, psychologically. Could you talk a little bit about what bricolage is, how that's a feminine value, and why that might relate to regeneration?
Mm. It's a really amazing and fluid and flexible art form. And it's about using what's to hand and creating something anew. My favorite example is the crazy quilts of the pioneering women who had to use what was to hand to make something practical, right? So it's applied beauty and form. It's very William Morris. And they would make quilts out of ribbons from the fair, old scraps from the wedding gowns, the work outfits, everything came together in this place. And then you create the seams, right? So you're sewing the fabric together, and then you do this beautiful overstitching that, knots and different colors. And that, I use this analogy with my students all the time because it's such a great way to talk about distilling, condensing, and editing our scholarship and our thoughts and our work. So you're putting things together and then you're making it really beautiful, disparate things. And it works the same with mosaics, right? The shards of our lives, things break, our favorite cup breaks. Well, let's turn that into something bigger and better.
Let's regenerate it.
Let's regenerate it, right? So a couple of years ago, I wrote about this, and I was talking about kintsugi, which is a Japanese art form where you put gold into the glue when you're gluing that favorite mug back together, and you accentuate the fault lines. And at the time, not only could you not find any information about it, I couldn't find any information about it online. You also couldn't find much about Mary Magdalene back in the day. And now I see on the internet both of these concepts and ideas flourishing. So it's really taken hold. And I think bricolage is the primary modality. Jazz is bricolage, there's so many examples across the fine and lively arts. It's really a beautiful way to put our ideas together.
Great. And I think that perfectly embodies what we just did in this segment. Together all these different pieces, because I think regeneration is a paradigm. It is a belief system. It's a way of seeing the world, and it is also what is happening, what's literally cycling through us. So I think what we create today is a container to kind of help people dive in and start to understand the many meanings of regeneration and how they might apply it to their lives, how they might be able to see their lives differently. And I think it brings hope too. Regeneration is hopeful.
Oh, yes. Oh, right? Yes. Well, it's either we get necrotic and die, or we revitalize, right? We have to let go and keep going. And why not have fun? Why not dance?
Exactly. Beautiful. Why not dance? Let's leave it on that note. That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. April. It has been a pleasure as always.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you, Annalisa.
You're welcome. So if you want to learn more about Dr. April and her work, how you can work with her, I will leave a link to her website below. If you liked this video, then I encourage you to like it, to subscribe to my channel, to leave a comment, ask questions. We love to chat. And I also encourage you to head on over to my Patreon page if you'd like to support this work out in the world. There you can learn more about what it means to be a member, what you can receive as a member. So thank you again so much for being here, for listening to our conversation about regeneration. Engage with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. All right. Thanks, everybody. Till next time. Ciao.